Ready to start, restart, or re-energize your vegan or plant-based practice? You're in the right place. I'm Michelle Olander, and this is Veg Your Best. Episode 185, I Could Never Go Vegan, with documentarian Thomas Pickering. Welcome back, my Veg Your Bestie. Welcome back from my vantage point, in new media, on this podcast, all sorts of different media available to move people in positive directions. The most powerful motivation for people moving in a vegan or plant-based direction over the past 15 or 20 years must be in the shape of documentaries. What the Health, Game Changers, Forks Over Knives, Cowspiracy, Dominion, Earthlings. These are just some of the films that have been around for a bit now and that guests on this podcast frequently mention as being super significant, super powerful in their decisions to limit or eliminate the consumption of animals. And as of April 2024, coming right up, there's going to be a brand new documentary to take its place in that list. I Could Never Go Vegan. That's the title. I Could Never Go Vegan. And today's guest is filmmaker Thomas Pickering. Thomas examines the reasons we all give when we say, I could never go vegan. Those five words spoken around the world by so many non-vegans. But why? And on a quest for the truth behind it, filmmaker Thomas Pickering sets out to investigate what are the leading arguments against the vegan movement. I think you're really going to enjoy hearing all about Tom Pickering's personal vegan journey, his running programs and challenges, his filmmaking process, and also how you can help support the film by sharing it on social media, watching it when it gets to your part of the world, and following them on Instagram at ICouldNeverGoVegan_movie. You've heard me say it on this podcast many times, right? I thought I could never go vegan until I stopped thinking that and started thinking about what I could actually do. So let's get straight to the conversation, and I will see you on the other side. Tom Pickering, documentarian, filmmaker, vegan runner. Welcome to Veg Your Best.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, we are very excited to have you here because this is a very exciting time in your life, I'm guessing, in terms of not just a family member on the way, but you've got the documentary, I Could Never Go Vegan. Have I said it correctly?
You have said it correctly, yes. I could never go vegan.
We've all said it. I think we've all said it. You are unusual to me because I have still not met anybody who's been vegan, born and raised since birth. But I haven't met too many people who've been vegetarian since birth. And that is you. That's part of your story, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. So I was raised initially as a vegetarian. So my parents went vegetarian in the 80s, then I was born. And my brother as well, also raised vegetarian. He's a couple of years older than me. And then we sort of went through our lives as you do, not really thinking about meat because it was never something that was, the idea of eating meat was never an option for us or never even considered to be an option. It was just normal. And I only really realized that people thought it was quite strange when I'd be out with friends and we'd say go for like school lunch or something. And then they'd be like, why aren't you having this burger? And I was just like, oh, I don't eat it. But at that time, I never really thought about the ethics behind it. It was more, this was just how I was. This is what I did. And it was only as I got a little bit older when I started to explore. And also, actually, at one point, I was very sporty as a child. I played lots of football, did lots of running, lots of tennis, pretty much everything. I skateboarded, rollerbladed. I was incredibly active. And I only really realized I wonder if there was like a connection between constantly playing in sports, and I was competing at a reasonable level. I won a like medal for the Northern Championships, for example, in cross country, that kind of thing. Um, and I only really realized, I wonder if there was a connection between the way I was brought up and, not having animal products, or at that point not having meat, um, and the sports I was doing. And then when I explored that a bit more, I realized at some point in my 20s that cow's milk really wasn't doing things for me. And I think I sort of tested it by avoiding having any dairy products, and overnight I felt immediately better. And so from that point on, then I started to look into the ethics of veganism. And when, I saw things that I could never unsee. And after that point, I was like, oh, this is the life for me. I can't justify being involved in that. I thought I was doing great things as a vegetarian, but I kind of realized the horrors of the dairy industry, the egg industry, just not something I wanted to be a part of. And so from that point on, I went onto a vegan path, and then felt the health benefits that life would offer. And yeah, I've been the same ever since.
Well, I first learned about you through your initiatives in putting together challenges for vegan runners or plant-based runners. And I know that you were a bit inspired, or I imagine you were a bit inspired by Veganuary, and wanted to help people also move, not just with their choices of how they shop, buy, eat, but also to see that it was actually going to be a benefit for them. Tell me a little bit about what came into, before we talk about the movie, which I want to, the documentary. I want to hear a little bit about where you come from. So tell me about what happened with your challenges for plant-based running.
Well, initially, a lot of people overcomplicate things, I think, with regards to fitness. And I think there's so much evidence to suggest that just moving, daily movement is incredibly good for us. And I think a lot of people don't understand it, or maybe it's just they've never really put any thought into actually actively going and doing something. Or maybe, as I say, they've overcomplicated it and thought, well, I can't go for a really hard run. I can't get to the gym. I haven't got time. I'm just not going to do anything. So, and really, I wanted to show that it could be incredibly simple, and the benefits are undeniable if we just, whether it's going out for a dog walk, whether it's just going out for a stroll on your dinner hour at work, whatever it might be, just trying to incorporate that into your life, adopt this really healthy habit. And so I was trying to combine that with the power of plants effectively, because I'm such an advocate for this way of living, and I honestly believe I'm so much healthier as a result of that. I feel like I'm a faster runner because of that. I feel like I'm stronger when I go to the gym and lift weights because of that. And so it was trying to bring these two aspects together. And the hope was do it in a way that didn't turn people off. So I really wanted to focus on the health side of things and on performance, because I think, and you're right, I was incredibly inspired by Veganuary. But I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to take that idea of, people go through this challenge for a month. So in our case, for running on plants, it's a 5K challenge in June that people go through, and the whole point is that by the end of the month, they run a faster 5K than they did at the start of the month. And I thought, wouldn't that be like really tangible for somebody to be able to say, wow, 1 month and I'm faster, I'm physically faster. I've knocked 2 minutes off my 5K PB. And so I tried to incorporate a challenge that would give somebody real evidence at the end, as opposed to perhaps just saying, oh yeah, I feel loads better, which is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but there's just something about being able to say, I don't just feel better, I'm actually faster. I've ran 2 minutes faster, or whatever it may be. So that was how the idea was born. And I love running. I've ran since I was 8 years old, from like a fairly competitive level, and I love this compassionate way of living and eating plants. And so it was combining these two loves and trying to help people feel that benefit, because I do believe when you feel the benefit, you're more likely to stick with this way of life. And so it was just trying to do something that would help people experience that.
I think what's valuable about your work is you are helping people. Most of us have some sort of pushback when we're new to the idea, when it seems, because as Melanie Joy, who's in your documentary, says, we've been sold that animal products are natural, necessary, and normal. And that necessary thing
really sticks with a bunch of us, especially if we're moms, if we're worried about raising our kids. We're thinking, oh, I don't know. My kid needs protein. My kid needs the iron. My kid needs the calcium. My kid needs all these things. And so one of the things we assume, and I think especially men assume, is I couldn't train with this kind of a way of eating. I couldn't really be a responsible steward of my body, even though I love the idea ethically. I'm all on board, but I just couldn't do that. And this is part of also what comes behind your new documentary, which is coming out any day now. Um, you're busting the things that have we've all said I could never go vegan.
Yeah, I mean, we have all said it, haven't we? That's the thing. I mean, I said it as a vegetarian. I could never go vegan. And that's what was really topical about the idea to us. So it kind of started because I was chatting with my brother one day, who, as I mentioned, was also raised as a vegetarian before going vegan. And we thought, wouldn't it be interesting to kind of tell the story of exploring why, people, for one, why people say they can never go vegan, and actually exploring all the arguments, or at least all the key arguments, the main ones, and also trying to find if they're justified, because why do they exist? Why are there so many myths and misconceptions? And at the same time, add that personal story, which is me exploring why my parents chose to raise me that way in the first place. What were their motivations for that? And it kind of takes me on this really interesting journey. And with each argument against the movement, I will speak to the various experts who can answer those questions. And we are so, I mean, you mentioned Melody Joy there. We were so lucky to have an incredible cast in this film. Pretty much anybody who's anybody sort of in the vegan movement. I'm based in the UK, so we focus a little bit on the UK, or quite a lot on the UK, but we do also focus on North America, Canada, Asia. We kind of go global with it because we want it to be relatable wherever you are. And so we're so fortunate that we speak to these people, and we really do get to the bottom of these points. And I'm just so happy with the final product in terms of the film that we have, the message that it kind of projects out to the world. And I can't wait to get to the premiere in April and hear what everybody thinks.
Do you have a date for the premiere?
Yeah, so the London premiere is April 10th. So tickets are on sale for those now. That they're nearly sold out, I'm really pleased to say, but there are still a few left. And there's a Northern premiere in Sheffield, which is very, very close to selling out, and that's on the April 11th. So if you're quick, you can still probably get a ticket for that. And then from April 19th, it goes nationwide in the UK. So that's rolling out across the country to various cinemas. And then from there, we'll be announcing the rest of the world. So yeah, US and Canada and everywhere else, for example. So yeah, exciting times ahead.
Well, I have a bunch of questions about how this all happened because when I looked at the number of experts that you've just spoken about, all the experts that you were able to uh, bring in to talk about the different pushbacks we all have about veganism and the myths that there are about it, I was thinking, how on earth did you get all those people in, what is it, 97 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a real challenge. I won't lie. The first cut of the film was about 2 hours and 20 minutes. So
Still
we
quite
we
short for all those people.
yeah, and then we took another, 40 odd minutes off that. So we did a lot of test screenings and things, and we had different versions that we tested and tried, and we had great audiences who gave us really valuable feedback. Because for us, it was how do we tell a story that's really compelling? Because you're exploring things that some people, if you're non-vegan, you will naturally be quite defensive to some of the things that we're saying, and that's not having to go at that individual. It's just being honest about what we're up against here. You're effectively telling people that the way they've been living might not be the best way to live, and sometimes people might be like, well, hang on, who are you to come and tell me that I could do things differently? So we wanted to be really conscious of that and actually try and present all the information in such a neutral way that you watch it and it's not like you're having this forced upon you. It's actually the information's there and you can then make your own decision. And ultimately, I think with what we show, sometimes it's impossible to deny what you're looking at, particularly if you're talking about animal welfare and some of the conditions on farms and in slaughterhouses and that sort of thing. So we try to be clever about how we position that. And we also try and do things in a way that's, where possible, we bring in some humor, some light relief. So it takes people out of the, this idea that vegans are so serious. We want to show, we can enjoy ourselves as well. And we're acknowledging that, we're just trying to promote living in the most kind and compassionate way and actually do what's right for us as humans, what's right by the animals, what's right for the planet, and ultimately what could be wrong with that. So we just wanted to tell the most convincing story that hopefully leaves a lasting impression on the viewer.
So for people who sometimes tell me, I think I've spoken about this. There are some people who know me very well and are very supportive of what I do, but they don't listen to the podcast because they are like, Michelle, I don't want to hear it. I just don't, I love you. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to feel bad all the time. And I do think that is something, there is that, I'm glad you've said that you try to include a neutrality to the message and a not moral neutrality, but a neutrality to the presentation of the message. And some, upbeatness to it, because a lot of us, if we are focused on the horrors of it, which do exist, we might just want to, curl up in a closet and put blinders over our eyes and not think about it because it just seems overwhelming. So I've so enjoyed this new kind of generation of activists who are coming at it from whatever positive place they can, because we need to believe we can do it before we can do it.
Exactly. And one thing I think we need to remember as well is what works for one person in terms of helping them transition to veganism might not necessarily be the right way for another person. So there is a place for all kinds of activists in the world, I think. We were very particular in how we structured the film because, to the point you alluded to there, we didn't want to jump in with really hardcore animal welfare footage and people just turn it off immediately. So we opened the doc quite light-hearted. We focus on athletes because it's quite fun. We're following different athletes who are doing amazing things. We speak to doctors, nutritionists, health experts, because that side of thing, I think people tend to be more receptive to. Most people who you speak to will probably acknowledge that there's something in their life they could do a bit better with regards to maybe their health. Whether it's or having one, fewer cheat meals, or whether it's not having that glass of wine at a weekend, or whatever it might be. People tend to be a bit more receptive to hearing that than they do if you were to say to them, what you are doing is actually causing destruction here, and and you are single-handedly to blame for for this particular deforestation, or as a really ridiculous example. But then there's a way to communicate which is people like Dr. Melanie Joy are experts at that, and I'm forever inspired by them in the way they do it. It's understanding how to reach a particular person, isn't it? Like if I have friends, for example, who I know are perhaps quite like sporty, I'll maybe try and reach them with that particular argument, and I'll be like, actually, I feel since I went vegan, there was a real lack of inflammation in my body. I was getting an abundance of plant protein, and actually, I had way more energy. Have you ever considered that side of things to try and elevate your particular sport? And maybe that way works rather than going down the welfare route, for example. So I think it's almost a skill in its own right to understand how to communicate with someone. And I'm constantly learning and trying to be better in that. But, as long as we're trying to improve and understanding that and knowing that, well, how I spoke to this previous person might not work with this person, that's the best we can do. And we can only keep building on that and try to improve ourselves as well. So that's kind of the philosophy I take.
Because so many people are doing extra things that maybe you and I aren't doing out of their concern for something they're very knowledgeable about, something that they understand now that we haven't figured out. I always say when I became vegan, I realized how much I don't know, more than any other thing. I mean, when you go to university, you study, you learn things, you go, oh, there's so much I don't know. But when you go vegan, I think you realize how much about day-to-day life you don't know, about food systems, about the way our society works, about our economy, so our political situation, so much. And I've noticed that young people yes, they're very interested in health, especially if they're sporty or especially if they're trying to make health gains. But they're very, very interested in the environment and in deforestation and in water usage and pollution. And so I'm wondering if you learned anything as a lifelong vegetarian, a longtime vegan, if there was anything that you learned during the process that surprised you.
I did. So the health side of things, I felt like I was quite knowledgeable on that. There were bits that I would learn along the way. Um, Definitely in the welfare side because we go undercover in the film, and so I experienced some things that I'd never experienced firsthand in person with my own eyes. And then I kind of certain conditions, certain criteria that is fine for an animal to live in, but then when you witness it, it's truly horrific, and you can't believe that that's like almost a tick box exercise. Particularly in terms of like the enrichment that they will have, or what qualifies as enrichment in factory farms or even in free range farms. So that side of thing was quite shocking to learn. But the most actually I learned was the environmental section. So we kind of split the doc into those three key areas: health, welfare, and environment. And yeah, I learned so much with regards to the environment and the impact of animal agriculture in particular, the sheer use of lands, everything to do with sort of eutrophication, acidification, what grazing actually means in terms of using the resources that the planet has to offer, and how the myths and misconceptions that surround grazing, because people think of that almost at this it conjures up a bucolic image of, oh, isn't it wonderful, these cows roaming around on this field, and the realities are very, very different, which we rarely explore in detail in the film, and the impact that has. Just to throw one random example in, if New Zealand kind of prides itself on the grazing that it offers their cows, and if we were to eat, as in the rest of the world were to eat like the typical New Zealand does in terms of the way the cows graze there, we'd need multiple planets just to support the food production. So it's things like that. You kind of hear it, and then you look into the science behind it, and it blows you away. And you kind of realize there's a serious issue, and we have a broken food system that really needs fixing. And it's the same with regards to government subsidies, particularly in the UK. So we looked a lot into subsidies in the UK. It's the same. I mean, it's a similar story in America, but if I focus specifically on the UK, certain parts of the industry are propped up, literally propped up from subsidies by the government, and you kind of question how in it on any planet can this be sustainable? And obviously the answer is it isn't sustainable. But it's why aren't we doing more to kind of fix this? Why aren't we actually working with farmers for a food system that actually supports life and that we can thrive on, that doesn't rely on pesticides and fertilizers, and trying to address these issues that could actually fix the healthcare crisis that we're also in as well, and actually basically help people on a global level. And we go into that as well. I don't want to effectively spoil too much, but we do explore all of these themes and why we think they exist, and then we actually look into the rationale behind them. So I'm really proud of the research that and the detail that we go into for that, and the fact that we still keep the runtime down. So hopefully it feels like it's really fast paced and people aren't drifting off in any areas, and we make it as so it's actually relatable and understandable. Because one thing I wanted to be sure of is that we didn't fall down the rabbit hole of all these buzzwords and making it so confusing that the viewer's lost in the process, and the viewer effectively is with me on the journey. That's how we wanted it to feel, and I'm learning things as they're hopefully learning things, and we're on this journey together. And by the end, we've effectively gone through this whole experience and feel like you know we've gone through a revolution of our own, and it's like, right, what can we do now to change our ways? That's the intention. Hopefully that's what people get from it when they watch the film. But yeah, that was a very long-winded way of me saying I did learn quite a lot.
Good. Well, I think we all will. And sometimes you know something intellectually, or you've read it, but the penny doesn't drop until somebody else says it a slightly different way, or there's a visual that helps you. Or sometimes I always find these infographics, which are so much better than when I was a young person. Infographics showing you what the effect is compared to other kinds of choices. There are so many different things that can be done to help people take in the information that they may actually have learned in words, but they don't feel yet. Now, lest anybody think this is a recent, just like a hoot you went on recently, this has been a process of at least 4 years, right?
Yeah, 4 years. Yeah, I can't quite believe it actually. It's been such an undertaking. And I mean, I wouldn't, I wouldn't change a bit of it, but it really has been hard work because we had a pandemic thrown into the middle of all of that.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. We actually had to strip everything back significantly in terms of the crew, and which actually worked in our favor because it was a bit easier to keep it kind of what they would call a skeleton crew, where it's basically everyone can fit in one car. And a large part of it was just me and my brother. So James, my brother, who produced and actually wrote the screenplay, which is another thing. A lot of people don't realize a documentary would have a screenplay, but a documentary of this size with what we were tackling, it needed it. We needed to be so precise, and the level of research that went into that as well, which is another reason why it took so long. But going back to the amazing cast that we had, we were so fortunate. The thing I find with vegans in particular is they're really eager to help. So it was very rare that we'd have any kind of backlash or anybody say they didn't want to be involved, which was great. And whenever we had a bit of questions like, does this read right to you? Have we like referenced this study correctly? We were super conscious not to be misleading in any way, because some previous docs have potentially been criticized for maybe using studies in a way that's not entirely accurate, or maybe just kind of shaping the information to suit their agenda. And I mean, you will always get some criticism, whether it's justified or not. That's just the nature of the industry, in particular if you're making a vegan film. But we wanted to do everything we could to ensure that we didn't get that, and that we were being completely fair, because we're so confident in the information and how it's presented that you can't really argue with it anyway. So we were really lucky that we could draw upon the cast and actually pull on their expertise, because we have so many experts in the various different fields that we had to take advantage of that, and they were more than happy to help. So we spent our time, which is kind of one of the reasons why it took so long. And then, I mean, films in general, this is another thing a lot of people perhaps don't understand. The films do, especially independent filmmaking, they take a long time. Yeah, the post-production process alone has been well over a year, and the various legal hoops you have to jump through. You have to make sure you're fully insured before it can go anywhere. Something where you go undercover can kind of cause some complications sometimes. So you have to do everything right. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to release the film at cinemas like we are, and then later on sort of streaming platforms and things. And ultimately then we've done it for nothing, because, we need people to see this. That's why we've done it, really. So we were just making sure we did it right, and we were telling the best story we could tell. And we just had to have a bit of patience and know that we would eventually get there. And now we have.
Did you do the editing, or did you have another editor?
Yeah, so my actually main sort of job is I'm a director and an editor. So which pairs quite nicely with James, who is a screenwriter and a producer. So we were quite a good team together for that reason. So I did all the editing. And to be honest, I'm glad I did, because it was a huge, huge job to edit. I can't describe how many hours of footage we had. And just going through it all, like if we'd have paid an additional editor to come on, it would have cost probably the entire budget just for them to go through it and to edit everything. So yeah, it worked out well that it was me editing. But that's something I'm really, I've been doing that for years, so I was really confident with that side of things.
So for the filmmaker, documentarian nerds out there, I was told, please ask what materials he used, what kind of camera, what did he use for kit?
Interesting. So, nobody's asked me this yet, so it's nice to have that question. I'm a big fan of Panasonic cameras, particularly in the world of independent filmmaking, because I think you can really push the boundaries with them. They probably overperform. So I use the Panasonic Lumix S1H as my main A camera. I set that. I will build it up into like a cinema style rig, so it's quite heavy duty, and I usually record externally to the Ninja monitor, which will mean something to people who know what that is. And then I had a B camera, which was the Panasonic Lumix S5, which is much smaller, but it's the kind of one that you could throw on a gimbal if you needed to, or just keep it really lightweight and portable if it was like a run and gun setup.
So 2 cameras.
Yeah, 2 cameras, and then I did do. So there's a bit in the doc where I go on a 50K ultra with Paul Yude, who's an 86-year-old vegan ultra athlete. And for that, I knew I was going to be self-recording that because we were doing this 50K course and we couldn't get like a camera team access or anything. And I was like, I'm not going to carry around a big camera that I've built up into almost a cinema style rig. So I just took a GoPro Hero 10, tiny, tiny little thing, but it's pretty sharp camera and has a fantastic in-body stabilization, so doesn't shake or anything. And I just filmed him with that, with like a cinema module on to mic it up, and it worked a charm. That was obviously pretty much where I only used the GoPro, but it served its purpose for that just because I had no other option.
And the look when you're running, the look of a GoPro, that works perfectly, don't you think, with a run? It kind of, yeah. We've all watched all our friends' boring videos like that. So there's the excitement of that kind of a look.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean the stabilization on those cameras now is incredible. Like you can't even believe it. It's the kind of thing you would usually have to do on a Steadicam back in the day, but you can just hold the camera, run, and it does everything else for you. And it's almost like I don't understand how this works. There's some witchcraft taking place here because it's incredible for the price tag. So yeah, I was really happy with that, and it was a great experience that day to do 50K with a man in his mid-80s who's just defying all odds.
That's marvelous. Yeah, I'm a big fan of featuring the older vegans who are out there doing amazing things. What did you use for editing? And then I'll leave you alone about the technical stuff. What did you use as an editing program?
So I edit on Adobe Premiere Pro. I've always used it. A lot of people seem to have an issue with it these days. I think especially because DaVinci's become quite an editing powerhouse when it used to be primarily for color grading. But I mean, I have no issue with Premiere Pro. I really like it, and to be honest, I kind of feel like I'm at a point now where I stick with what I know. It does everything I need it to do, so why change? They kind of all do the same thing these days anyway. And I edit on. I have a Windows setup and I have like a really high-end Mac as well. But if I'm honest, I prefer the Mac. It's more powerful. I was doing the full edit on my Windows computer and the render was a nightmare. So when I was exporting the final film off, it was just dropping out all the time. And so I switched to Mac and I had no issues. So I'm a big advocate for editing on a Mac or a MacBook, depending on your price tag. They are quite expensive, but it's worth it.
I'm going to make sure that everybody who doesn't care about that can fast forward to it. We'll give them the notes. But I think that was great. I know some people are really going to care about that because this community is a community that's doing more and more YouTube work and podcasting and filmmaking, and TV production. There's a lot more happening among our vegan community and plant-based community. So I think your words of just how it happens, the behind the scenes will be valuable to them. Now tell me, how can we support this, see it? Most of my listeners are in North America currently, though I have a very nice group in the UK and Ireland, and a few in Australia. How can we support it so it comes out and rolls out in more places or is available for more people to see?
So we've announced in the UK so far. As I mentioned earlier, we will be announcing in North America and Australia and the rest of the world. So first thing I would say is stay tuned for when that happens. It will be soon. We'll be announcing. Obviously, we're playing next month, so from next month it's been released to the world, starting with the UK anyway. So it's not long to go now. The biggest thing really is just help us spread the word, help us raise awareness for this. When you watch the film, please give it a good review as long as you enjoy it. Please share it with your friends, with your family. Please share it on social channels. So we have obviously the accounts like I Could Never Go Vegan _movie. is the Instagram account, and we also have a Facebook account as well. That's just I Could Never Go Vegan. If you help spread awareness of our social channels, because we're putting everything out there as well, in terms of the information about the film, where you can watch the film. So really, that's the best way, is try and help us reach a bigger audience, because ultimately we want non-vegans to watch this film. We want to, I mean, obviously we want to reach vegans as well, and vegans are fantastic in helping us promote this material, but it's the non-vegans we're trying to reach because we're wanting to make a difference. Ultimately, that's why we did this. We did this to try and help create a kinder and more compassionate world. So anything we can do to spread this as far and wide as possible is what I would ask of people.
So we'll be linking your Instagram, your Facebook, and your website to everybody. That'll be in the show notes. And we'll on my Instagram channel, which is where I'm most active, we'll keep sharing the things as you post them. So we'll try to, and everybody can do that. It's not just me that can do that. Everybody with a Facebook or an Instagram, when you see I Could Never Go Vegan, the movie, come through, you can just share that and share it with your whole group, not just all your vegan fellow travelers. We can all just have, even just, I think that title is just a title that opens up a little idea of like, oh yeah, no, I couldn't, but even if you still think no, just that question might wiggle in behind some of our, in our unconscious of our friends and family. Now tell me, so, and you also, I think we can donate to the process too, to help it roll out, correct?
Yeah, we so on our website, people can donate to us, and we've had some wonderful people donate on there, which we're eternally grateful for, because we we wouldn't have been able to make the film without grants and donations. That's ultimately how we were able to do this. And so we're fortunate that there are just some truly, truly remarkable people out there who are so happy to help the cause. So if you are kind enough to donate, you can do that through the website, which is just icouldnevergovegan.co.uk. And as I say, we'll be eternally grateful for that.
That's great. That's great. So now what is next? If you can get through the next couple months, what's next?
Well, so I'm hoping really throughout the rest of this year we can just have such a big impact with this. So and we're going to throw everything at it to try and really make a difference. So it's doing as much as we can for the film. I am also going to become a father in May, so we'll be spending some time getting used to that, figuring out how to do that. But
so
I'm
maybe
very
that's
excited.
enough.
Yeah. And then I've got other projects. So we've got the Running on Plants campaign again in June. So that's the big 5K campaign, which I'm super excited about, because that's helping people really take control of their health, and it's great to hear the various stories about how much better people feel when they get involved in that. So we'll definitely be looking forward to that. And then it's just there are other projects, other film projects to do with veganism, to do with activist work that I'll be doing. I'll always be doing something to help the movement. This is, I'll be doing this until the day I die. This is literally, the best kind of work that I think I could ever do, because I truly feel like I'm at least trying to make a difference. And what could be better than that, really? You're doing everything. I love making films, and I love veganism, and I get to combine those two things. So that's incredible. Yeah. So as I say, I'll be doing more editing work for some fantastic organizations that exist, because I do a lot of that, and just keeping as busy as I can, whilst also trying to maintain some form of social life, which I struggle with, but I'll try.
Sorry, that won't happen. You're a new father coming up. No, that's not going to happen. Hate to be the one to tell you.
Yeah.
Tom Pickering. Thank you so much, Tom Pickering, documentarian, filmmaker. I Could Never Go Vegan, the movie coming out in April for the first rollout. And we're going to be looking for all the other places it rolls out across the year. And congratulations to you and your family on the new edition.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to hear what you and all your listeners think of the film.
So, what did you think about Thomas Pickering? What did you think about the idea of the movie I Could Never Go Vegan? The goal of this podcast has always been to meet people where they are and to help them take any actions that they want that currently feel maybe a bit too overwhelming. But but I have seen in my life, I've seen it in so many lives, moving in a vegan direction. It is a skill set that people use to accomplish all kinds of amazing things far beyond just not eating and buying and wearing animals. Even if right this minute you think, I could never go vegan. Thomas and his brother James Pickering are doing the same thing. They're meeting people where they are and inspiring them to take all kinds of different actions. And I hope that you're going to be inspired to watch the film, to support it, and to remember social media support is actually real, true support for documentaries like this. I could never go vegan. The links will all be in the show notes. And please take a moment to try and support Tom and James Pickering with this real achievement. Okay, kids. Okay, happy spring. We're almost there. And in the meantime, veg your best.
Veg Your Best podcast production, music, and editing by Charlie Weinshank. Thanks, Charlie. Before you go, it would mean so much to me and the Veg Your Best team if you would hit subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, or share with someone you think might be interested. Something about algorithms, it helps bump us up a little in the rankings, and that's the best way to help others find the podcast and for us to find our audience. So, until next week, make it easy and veg your best.